Hi, my name is James. This is Morning Mercy, and this podcast was created to support those on a journey away from the teachings of William Branham. And today I'm going to be answering a question that came through my podcast relating to finding community after you walk away from the church. And it's something I know people wrestle with because being a part of a church like the Message, the sense of community that you find is unlike anything else that you probably will experience in life. I don't know if you can even understand what I mean by that until you have an experience of belonging to a faith group like that. And it certainly doesn't have to be just a faith group, but yeah, there's a common mindset that comes with being in a Message church, which has you in an adversarial mindset with the entirety of the world outside. So that means you're trying to separate from the world and stay in community with a group of people who think like you do, who act like you do, who are safe, and who provide all your social and spiritual needs of support. You don't have to look anywhere outside of this group. So although we didn't live together per se, we lived life together completely. We looked to each other for social needs. We hung out with each other. We went to each other's homes. Whenever you did anything, it seemed like it involved who's going to be there from the church? Whose home are we going to from the church? When you went to church gatherings, it was sometimes hours of fellowship after or even a little bit before. You were just always looking for opportunities to gather, to be in community. And that was really a benefit of being a Message believer. You could even go so far as to say that it's possibly the biggest upside or benefit because you can't find it elsewhere. And it's a bit of an indictment, I think, of society in general on how disconnected we are from each other. And that's why there's such a sense of loss when you walk away from the church. I can say that I don't know almost any of my neighbors in my neighborhood. We have this coming and going that happens between people who live right next to each other, where they have their lives, you have your life. You just don't get to know people. And that also comes into play, I think, just the way society has evolved within city life. We now can walk down the road to a shop and buy food, buy essential things that we need to survive and live. We buy homes that are already built. We don't need to look to our neighbors to supply those types of needs just to live. And the more we can depend on the department store down the road, we don't need to know our neighbors. And that's the way it more or less happens. And so the times that we do interact with people around us, it's just the comings and goings of life. We may work together, then we go home to our own little bubble. And that's how most of us live. It takes a lot more work to find friendships and community outside of a church like the Message. And that's why it's a struggle and a bit of a shock when you leave the church. Many of us, that's all we've ever known is because we grew up in the church and we had that constant, endless, easy sense of community. And then you leave it and now it's like, where do I go to find people? How do I make friends? Because it's not just handed to you on a silver platter, inherent of being a part of the church. So yeah, finding community moving forward, it's a different thing. And it means that you're going to have to put some effort into it. You'll even find that when you go to another church, it's just not the same. I know the church that we attended for years after we left the Message, it was different from the very first service. We could tell that the people just didn't have that closeness that we were accustomed to. Because we didn't have this mindset that each other was all that we had and all that we could depend on, we didn't bind together in that same kind of way. So the expectation that you're going to go to another church and find similar community It's not a guarantee, and it's probably unlikely. What I can say though is that the rules of finding people and building friendships, it just comes hand in hand with your willingness to talk to people, to engage with people, to put yourselves in positions where you get to meet people. And that's a mindset. And I think that's one of the first key things that I think you need to adopt is to not look at everybody like an adversary. It doesn't mean that you have to agree with people around you, but the willingness to interact, the willingness to listen, the willingness to endure disagreement and yet still maintain friendship. The feeling that you don't have to cut off people who aren't exactly like you, who don't think exactly like you. The sense of curiosity of wanting to get to know how somebody else sees the world. That in itself is going to lend opportunity to just meeting people, being able to find common ground with people. It's a needful thing of being part of a society that has differences and that could possibly learn to coexist in a healthy, positive way. So that's, I think, a framework of mind that you need to begin to work towards. And yeah, it puts you in uncomfortable situations sometimes. It's a characteristic that I enjoy now. I like to think that I don't have to walk into a room and pick apart people in a judging way of who I can and can't be friends with. Just on the onset of me judging their outward appearance or where they might be sitting or situated or an idea I might have based on stereotypes or preconceived judgment. You have to have a different framework to live in a world that's more open and more broad. You can develop your own boundaries, and there's no problem doing that. Other things that you might do just to find yourself in community is to extend yourself in ways that you maybe didn't think of, like going somewhere where people are working on a common cause to do something good in society. And in general, these are going to be decent people who you share the value of wanting to contribute to society. And by doing that, you meet people. You might even meet somebody who you really hit it off with. And maybe they aren't even somebody who shares your same faith. But that's okay. Like lo and behold, you can actually meet people who aren't exactly like you. Put yourself out there just a little bit. Volunteer. Look for opportunities to volunteer, doing something that is important to you. Go volunteer for some kind of event that's happening within your city. There's people there and they have good nature and goodwill towards other people. That's why they're volunteering. They're wanting to contribute. So go do that. Look for clubs. Look for social gatherings based on things that you enjoy. Maybe it's a book club. Maybe it's people who enjoy a certain genre of film or cinematography. Maybe it's music. Maybe it's like begin to dive into your passions and then look for groups and people who gather around that same passion or interest. And you'll begin to meet people. Like it's you having to actually do work to extend yourself. But just learn to build the skill of socializing and talking to people. If you work in a place where there's other people who work, like take note of people who you get along with and invite them out for dinner and like be friendly to them and be nice. Like really it comes down to that in a lot of ways. It's just learning to interact socially, be nice to people, look for opportunities to sit down and share a meal with other people. Like it's common sense kind of stuff. You could also go back to family that maybe you've isolated yourself from. It might involve having to apologize for being a little bit weird in the past of not having much to do with them. Family is kind of like low-hanging fruit. They're people that are already built into your network of people that you know. And you can kind of rebuild bridges or build bridges or just get to know your family in a different way. And again, you're going through that experience of building skill, learning how to listen, being curious about who they are, and the life they're living. And the more you're curious, and the more you listen, and the more you open yourself to opportunity, the more you're going to establish some kind of a relationship with them where you might look to get together with them more often. It's more effort, but that's the way it actually works. So yeah, I don't think there's a magic formula in terms of just voila, here's your new community. It's going to be a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of work here, a lot of work there. And it's going to come down to your desire to just wanting to be out there living a life that's full of people. It's going to be people that you've worked to build relationships with. If anybody else who's been part of the message would like to contribute and offer a little bit of insight from your own experience of building community, feel free to leave comments below, because I think we all share in this experience of how difficult it is to lose community, and how difficult it can be to rebuild community. So some of you may have had some really positive things that you can share. I'd love to hear it below, and I think that type of dialogue will help inform other people who are in the early stages of leaving, just to have a little bit of encouragement to know that yes, there is life to be lived after they leave the message, and you can find friends, you can build friends, and it's going to be okay. Thanks for listening. I hope this was helpful. If anybody else has another type of question that they'd like me to raise or bring up, please offer that to me. I'd love to answer your questions. Thank you so much.